Welcome back, guys, and in this video we'll be looking at forms. So forms basically are used for collecting input from your user, and to the inputs are actually going to be passed to PHP, and you can actually do whatever you want with those inputs. So basically you need to have some basic HTML skills for you to actually be able to use forms. So let's just go ahead and create some forms right here. So right here, let's just go and create a form. So we're going to have an input, and this will have a type of text, and we're going to give this a name, and this should be name. So let's just have a placeholder, and this will be enter your name. So basically we've successfully created a form, and if we should preview this, so let's see forms. Let's just close this, and you can see we have this nice input right here that we can actually type into. So we can actually create another form right here, and this will actually have a different type. So I want to have a select. So you need to actually have some basic HTML skills, like I mentioned earlier, to actually know the kind of forms to actually use in your application. There are times you want to use the select, and there are times you want to use the input or the checkbox or the radio. So it actually depends on how you're familiar with your HTML that you can actually use all this. So right here, I'm just going to give this a name, and this will be sex. So let's just say an option. This should be option, and right here we're going to have a male or a female. So if we should refresh this, you can see that we have that select right here, and right here we want to have a button that we actually trigger this form to be submitted. So let's just have a button, and the type will be submit. Yeah, and right here let's just call it submit. So basically this old form, let's just apply a break right here so the button can be on a new line. So basically this is our form. Yeah, so there are some things you need to know about forms. Number one, whenever you're declaring a form, you have to have an action. The action is actually the route which you actually want the information to be sent to, the information got it from your form to be sent to. So basically in the route now, you can actually write some PHP code that will undo those information being sent to it. Another thing you want to have on your form is the method, and this method, what this method does is how your form are being submitted. That's just what the method does. And we have different type of methods you can use. You can use the post method, you can use the get method. So hopefully this makes sense to you. And they are actually more of the method. We have the put method, we have the delete method, we have the request method, but the most popular one is the post and the get. Now we're going to be looking at differences between the post and the get. Now if you notice in my address bar right here, you can see the names of this input have actually been put right here. Now if I should go ahead and type something right here and I click submit, you can see the name, the value. This is actually an array, because you can actually say this is a key and why this is a value. So this is actually an array of data. So this, by default, this form is a get this form is operating on a on a get method, and that's why you can see these values right here in your browser. So that's one of the attributes of the get method. It actually display all the form data in the address bar. This is actually a bad practice. There are times you want to use the get request, good, but this is actually a bad practice because you don't want to display the name of the form right here. It won't be good for the security of your website. So what you can do right now is to actually change this method, because by default the method is get. So just go ahead and change it to post, and if we should refresh, we need to do a add refresh on this. So let's just do this, and if you notice, if we submit this, we not actually, the informations are not actually being displayed right here. Even if we go ahead and fill this, the information are not being displayed. This is actually what we want. So a post request is more secure than a get request. It adds this information from your address bar. It's actually cool though. It all depends on what you want to use, a get request or a post request. um you're the one building your app, so you know what to do with that. So next thing we want to do is we want to have an action, and this action can actually be referred to another page. So if you having another page, for example, we have a page called constant, so we can just do constant, and this information will be sent to constant. But we're not actually going to do this in the constant, and the reason is we want to have just a single page for all of this. So I'm going to reference this to the same page that we're on, which is the uh, form.php. So hopefully this makes sense to you. So let's just do this to be more to look better. So what we can just do is do the I type, doc type, and let's just say html. Yeah, so let's just go ahead and just structure this code right here, and this will be add. So this will be title, and let's just give this a title of form. So yeah, that's that for add. All right, here let's just do body, and within this body, this is where we want to paste our form into. So hopefully this makes sense to you. Yeah, so let's just refresh. This will have no changes on the UI, obviously. Let's refresh this. Okay, we have an error right here. We forgot to close this. So let's refresh now. Yeah, so everything works perfect. This doesn't change the UI, we just structure this in a proper way. So let's just go ahead and write our PHP on top of this. Remember when we're starting this PHP course, I told you you can actually write your PHP code on top of your HTML, or within your HTML, or below your HTML. It all depends on how you actually want to do it, but I'm actually going to do it right here. So I'm just going to use a very simple condition statement, which is if. Remember, we've talked about if statement in previous video, and I will use a function which says if is set. Now, because we're writing this codes on the same page right now, I don't want to run this PHP block of code every time this page is run. So I'm just going to have an is set. That means whenever this PHP codes right here will only be run whenever this button is being clicked. So let's just display this, for example. So if we have a PHP code that actually echoes okay, now if we should refresh, you'll notice this PHP code actually gets run every time this page loads. With We don't want this because we don't want to be sending an empty form to our PHP program to actually run. We actually want to wait for the user to actually input something and actually click the submit button before we can send that information. So let's just go ahead and use a very simple condition statement, and I'll use a very simple function which is ESET. Now ESET will check if something is true or not. So for example, if we have a value and you want to check if a key has a particular value, you can use ESET. So it's going to check if something is true and it's going to return true. If it's false, it's going to return false. Hopefully that makes sense to you. And I'll say if ESET, because we're using a method to actually send this request, we can actually now work with that method ESET post. And right here we can now give this a name because we didn't actually give it a name. So name will be submit. So this will actually be if set submit. That means if this particular button has been clicked, then this is going to run any code within the if block. So let's do this. Let's refresh. You can see we're not getting that okay now, but if I should click submit, you can see we get that okay. So let's just go ahead and echo these informations out. So I'm going to use the same global variable of post, and right here I'm just going to say name, and the next thing I want to echo out is actually the sex. So hopefully this makes sense to you. Let's just put a break right here. So let's just do break. Yeah, so let's refresh. Let's do a add reload. So let's just enter a name right here, which is Poshula Moses, and right here let's give it a sex of female. Let's click submit, and you can actually see those forms data being displayed at the top right there. So in next video we're going to be working with our database. We're going to actually save information into the database. We're going to save this information into the database. We're going to be retrieving it. We're going to be updating it, editing it, deleting it in next videos to come. So I'll see you next video, guys.